5 Easter eggs I decided to add to my Bendy map. If you decide to go back to the pool room before pressing the pump switch in Chapter 2 of Bendy and the Ink Machine, you can actually go back to a secret room behind the door that is not there in the actual game. If you decide to walk down this room, you can find one of my favorite Easter eggs I've added to the map so far. 3 armature stands are found posed in a triangular shape, vaguely reminiscent of our favorite Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica from the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Peering further behind the door, you can finally find yet another cine. However, this cine is lore important, so I will not show it in this video, as it can begin a certain type of route. In Chapter 4, there are actually 2 Easter eggs, one of which is actually a replica of many Boris in the Dark survival maps. While I will not show the whole map here, I will briefly show you a couple tidbits and sections of each map. This map being the tunnels from the later half of the game. If you continue the ascent on the way up to Chapter 3's beginning section during the Mole Man path, you can actually find a small replica of the Artist Rest in Lone Wolf as well. This is one of the earlier sections of the Nightmare sequence. Continuing on to the last room in the maze, you will find a singular giant bendy pentagram, as marked as closely as possible to the original game. Entering into the pressure plate that allows this to happen will cause another dream sequence. This one is of a very familiar hotel. And if we just quickly go to the other end of it, we can see exactly what we're being looking for. A bendy grease that's at the door. That seems about right, honestly. And, we find yet another reference inside of a reference. I'm sure you all know exactly what that is. And a familiar little car crash. After jumping in the water, you can find a brief section that connects to level 11, which is not normally accessible on the typical route of the game. It is just a long series of hallways and an elevator back to the beginning of Chapter 3's bathroom, which is now locked off in this version. In the refurbished version of the Chapter 4 crossway, there is one more reference. If you decide to go back before the cart is ready to go, you can actually go through another hidden room. Inside this hidden room is a familiar set of conveyor belts. If one is to traverse them, you will come across a familiar face in the upper rafters. I will now show a small version of that section. It's a little blurry as it's, not always extremely well lit on the television through another camera, but you can kinda get the gist. After reaching the middle set of corridors, the player will come across a very familiar screen. I am sure at least one person has quit here. One of my favorite Easter eggs is actually hidden behind the Sean Flynn audio log. If you decide to go back into the vent instead of continuing forward, you will actually find a brand new place. Wandering up the vent for a couple of seconds allows you to reach the rafters above the entire section. Looking down at the rafters, you will see a sweet little viewpoint. However, if you continue forward, as most players tend to do, you will find a picture on the wall. Behind the picture is a ever-familiar little location. However, all is not as it seems, as we have an old friend waiting for us. Or is that just the call of the void?